In a world where social media connects billions of people, it's easier than ever to reach out to someone. But how many of us have still felt lonely? Hi, I'm Stephen Jiwanmall. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm your host for the Aevidum podcast. Aevidum is a nonprofit that empowers students to shatter the silence around mental health and suicide. In this episode, we're learning more about a free program that gives teens someone to talk to. In Pennsylvania, Chester and Montgomery County offer what are called teen talk lines. Corinne Yost and Alyssa Allison work closely with this program. Here's our conversation. Corinne and Alyssa, thank you so much for your time. I know that this is something that you've been excited to talk about, and it's a great service for our community. And so I think when people hear about a phone number to call, it's often related to addressing a crisis, but that's not really what your program is about. So, Corinne, I want to start with you. Can you share the purpose behind Teen Talk Lines and what it offers?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm really glad that you're asking that question to kind of make that difference clear. So, our line is a warm line as opposed to a crisis hotline. A crisis hotline is something that you would call, anybody can call, if they are suicidal, if they're having some other mental health crisis. It's more of a high intensity, more of an immediate need that you would call a crisis hotline for. But with us, our warm line, as and like other warm lines, is really just a support line. And so the conversations that we have on the warm line tend to be a little less intense, and it's more about having that kind of consistent support and connection for our teens that reach out to us.
And Alyssa, is there anything else to add here?
Yeah, no, just going off of that, we see like a huge spike in like isolation these days. So like a warm line is just like a great place for our teens to find community and try and find somebody to talk to rather than just doom scrolling all day or something.
Yeah, I mean, in this world, it's very easy to get sucked into your phone, into your own life. And so, I'm curious, Alyssa, about why someone might want to reach out. What have teens been wanting to talk about when they use the line?
So we do a large range of conversations. It could be anything from self-harm to just, I had a really bad day. We're here for you regardless of what it is specifically that people want to text in about. As I briefly mentioned earlier, just there is a huge push for just like people not having a lot of people to turn to in their personal lives and not really knowing who to talk to. So we just are there for the teens to have another person to connect with. And we always look at ourselves as like a tool in your mental health toolbox.
I love that. A tool in your mental health toolbox. So, Alyssa, I want to stay with you on this because when teens do take that step and they do call or text, I'm curious about who's on the other end of that line. So, can you talk more about the people that are offering this peer support?
Yeah, for sure. So when we hear the term peer support, it's often seen as just like somebody who's the same age as you. For the teens, we do really try and focus on having teen for teen conversations. However, what peer support really is about is someone who has been through any sort of mental health crisis that has now gone through the stages of recovery and can now offer support to someone who is actively going through any sort of mental health struggles or anything of the sorts. So, I myself am a certified peer specialist, which is something that you can get trained in Pennsylvania. And I have struggled with depression and anxiety. I have ADHD, so it's been really hard for me to kind of like make connection throughout my life. And that was something I really struggled with up until college when I realized it's not as important to change yourself to fit into what other people might want, and instead focus more on like who do I want to be around? Who should I spend my time with? And since I went through that recovery journey, I am now able to help other people get to those steps where they feel like they are in recovery.
That's so beautiful. And Alyssa, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's really inspiring and encouraging to hear that someone who's been through something challenging is now turning their story into inspiration for other people. So thank you, and for all the peer specialists that are out there. Corinne, I want to go to you with this next question. Through this podcast, we've met so many incredible teens and young people that just want to help other people with their mental health. And I have a strong feeling that there may be some people listening to this podcast right now that want to help out. I know that your program is interested in having volunteers. So, can you talk about opportunities for students to volunteer with Teen Talk Lines?
Sure. Um, yeah, so our volunteers are a giant part of our line. They take most of the conversations that teens text in about, because most of the time they do text as opposed to call. And so I'll just go over briefly like what the process is to become a volunteer. So I'm going to give the email address in case anyone does want to request an application, and it's teentalkline@accessservices.org. And it's just the way that it sounds, it's spelled out. So you would request an application, fill that application out, send it back in, and then you'll receive an email back to figure out when you would be available for an interview. And it's a very low key interview. And it's just to get to know you and make sure you'd be a good fit for the line. But most people go through. And then we have a pretty rigorous, or not rigorous, but robust training that our volunteers go through, so that they're not just on the line kind of feeling like they're out in the middle of the ocean without a life preserver. So we give them a lot of guidance and training before they even start on the line. And then they eventually do start on the line, and we kind of work with their schedule and see how many hours they want to complete with us. And then once our teens start, they can work remotely, or they can come into our office in Plymouth Meeting. And they will get on a laptop and they will start to reach out to teens that someone like Alyssa, one of our certified peer support specialists, supervising the line, will give them and say, hey, do you want to reach out to this teen? And they'll reach out. And while they're on the line, they will be supervised the entire time. So we can watch the conversation happen in real time. So even at that, the teen volunteers have that support. And we're equipped to handle crisis situations as well. And we really want to also take care of our volunteers and making sure that they have enough enrichment and they feel like they're getting enough out of their experience with us. So we're starting to expand things a little bit also to include some outreach opportunities where they can go out into their community and spread some materials, talk to other teens in their school and or in their community about the line. And so that's another role that they have. So that's our volunteers.
That's fantastic. I love this opportunity for volunteers to give back to their community. I'm just thinking about my own life where I was a virtual support group facilitator, and I had to go through some really important sensitivity training and just understanding that even that volunteer role can be quite burdensome. Just listening to what folks have to share and just being
Sure.
mindful that folks also need that support while supporting other people.
Yep.
So that's really, really important. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's say that there's a teen listening to this podcast that isn't from Chester or Montgomery County, and I know that your program specifically serves those areas. But let's say that someone is listening from outside that area and they are looking for help or someone to talk to you. How do you take it from there? Alyssa, I want to go to you with this question.
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have callers all the time who call in that we need to confirm their town just to make sure they are in our service area. That's just because we're funded through the state, so we just got to make sure that we are serving people within that area. So what we can do is we can offer lines that are 24/7, that are like throughout just all of Pennsylvania or all of United States, like just tell numbers that don't rely on that town being in those counties. We're not going to just leave you hanging and be like, oh, good luck. We are going to make sure we get you set up.
I think that's really encouraging. I think there's value to hearing from a teen in your town. But I also think that this may inspire counties across Pennsylvania or even across the country to develop something similar to what you have in Chester and Montgomery. As we start to wrap up our conversation, I want to talk a little bit more about peer support. I would have loved to have this when I was a teenager, just trying to um, hear from someone that gets it. I think sometimes when teens talk to their parents, there's just a disconnect because of the generational difference, or maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing certain things with them. So, can you talk about the value of peer support? What does it mean for teens who have navigated mental health challenges to give back in this way? So, Corinne, I want to start with you, and then Alyssa, if you can come in afterwards.
Yeah, I really love what you said, Stephen, about wishing that you had it as a kid and that there being a disconnect, that kids don't always feel like they can talk to their parents, because we hear that all the time. And that's why a lot of, we love our line, that we like to go out and share it with people and make sure they know about it. And so and that's why a lot of our teens come back and use our line, is they get that peer support, and there's really no barrier. I always like to say that you can be bed rotting, and and even be depressed in bed, and just get on your phone and give us a text, and we get to you. Um so for peer support, I mean, a lot of our teen volunteers join us because they want to give back, because they feel so passionately about mental health and want to reduce that stigma. And some of them even think about going into careers in the mental health field eventually. Um, and so I think it's really important for them when they've gone through something, and I can even speak from my own experience, that what it's like to go through something. And so you really want to give back, and you're like, you kind of feel like, I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through. And I especially want them to have support that I didn't have. And that's what we try to provide. And Alyssa can give, a little more in-depth, a little more explanation to that, because they work on the line more than I do, and they are a certified peer support specialist.
The really great thing about like our line, like you said, is just like how like people have gone through a mental health crisis themselves and now want to help. Some of our volunteers actually have been teens that previously used our line and then went through a recovery journey themselves and now are able to volunteer on our line and work on it and provide support to them. But as peer support as a whole, I'd say the biggest thing that I really love about it is how much people emphasize um, we are the expert at not being the expert. We understand that although we have gone through some sort of mental health journey, we're not the expert of all mental health journeys. We want to hear what you're going through and how we can help and what help looks like for you. There isn't one way to recovery. There's not one answer that's going to solve everything. And it's really great that we have so many different perspectives on our line, able to just provide support in whatever that might look like for that individual person.
I think that's beautifully said. And I think it's also important to note that this is not professional medical help. This is just an opportunity to just talk to someone. And I think what y'all are doing with this program is honestly life-saving. I think that you can't really underestimate what it means to just hear validation from someone and to just have someone on the other end just hearing you and wanting to have a conversation with you. So, Corinne, Alyssa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having us.
If you know someone who could benefit from the Teen Talk line, jot down these numbers: For Chester County, the number to call is 855-852-8336. The number to text is 484-362-9515. And for Montgomery County, the number to call is 866-825-5856. The number to text is 215-703-8411. We've also put these numbers in the episode description of our podcast. Please note that while these lines are open daily, volunteers respond to calls and texts during certain hours. And once again, these are not crisis or emergency hotlines. As always, thank you for listening to the Aevidum podcast. Special thanks to WellSpan for their support and to ND Sites for editing. You can follow Aevidum on Instagram at Aevidum. That's AEVIDUM. And check out our website, aevidum.org, to learn even more. I'm Stephen Jiwanmall, and I've got your back.